Welcome to the Wilderness Attitude Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Waddell. Hope everybody's having a great day, great week. Hope everybody's striving to better themselves and get out there and take the world by storm. And if not, then you can live vicariously through our series in Alaska. Last 3 or 4 weeks, I've been getting to know these men and women from Alaska and the different things that they do for work there and what they do playing there. For me, listening to some of these stories, these people who all grew up there, man, these people are hardcore. It's just been amazing learning about Alaska, some little things here and there, learning about these people, learning about what makes them tick, what makes Alaska so great. And I hope that these Alaskan podcasts have sparked your interest. Maybe if you're not going to make it to Alaska and hunt or go there to fish or whatever, maybe it's opened your eyes that, man, I need to do better here. I need to be better every day. Enjoy these podcasts. These men and women are great. Kick back, tune in, and enjoy. Have a great day. Hey everybody, it's Brandon, Wilderness Attitude. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you tuning in. Tonight we got Jesse Hula on the show. He is up in Anchorage, Alaska right now, and he's going to kind of round out the end of our Alaska series, and we're really excited to have him on. He's a pretty cool young man who's done a lot with himself since graduating high school, and it just seems like the common denominator in Alaska is you go there and you learn to kick ass in the wilderness, and then you learn to fly. It's like everybody learns to fly, and that's just awesome to me, right? And I think that sharing a lot of this Alaska series with everybody has been a lot of fun for me. I've got to meet some great people. I've got to move forward in some bucket lists. It's getting a little longer, I think, from meeting all these people, and I think Jesse's an inspiration for anybody that's listening. That's a young person in their 20s who even has had an idea or even a thought of going to Alaska and whether they could do something and make it and have fun, or we'll find out more from Jesse. The ups and downs of that process coming out of high school and dropping himself into Alaska like it's hot and going for it. So, without further ado, Jesse, thanks for being on the show, man. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure. We got turned on to you by Ben Knapp. He was a part of our Alaska series earlier, and he said you were a pretty cool young man, and Mike got a chance to meet you, and we kind of thought that grabbing someone on the younger spectrum and talking to them about their experiences would be pretty fun. So currently right now you're up there in Alaska. You got your long-time girlfriend that you've had, Hannah, who's up there with you. So you got a good lady by your side who went up there, and it's my understanding that she goes and fly fishes with you, which is right.
Yeah, we got her fly fishing a little bit. We got her that last summer. I got her out to the lodge for a couple of weeks, and she got to come hang out and check out all the sites, and actually got her fly fishing. She caught her first rainbow on a fly rod, which is pretty awesome. So she's jumping into it with me. She didn't grow up really fishing and hunting, so it's kind of learning.
So it's a whole new curve for her, isn't it?
Yeah, a steep learning curve for her. So, but she's grabbing onto it and going. So.
That's awesome. Well, and it's probably no easy task to catch your first rainbow on a fly rod up there outside of the lodge you work at, because every picture I saw of a rainbow that you guys have caught up there, they're huge. I mean, they're lunkers, right?
Yep. There's a lot of big ones. There's small ones too. Don't let the pictures fool you. But no, there's
right.
Awesome. I mean, gosh, the fishing up here is absolutely incredible. It ruins you for anywhere else.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking at when I was looking at some of that stuff. I'm like, that's crazy. I mean, we've got some good fishing down here on the lower San Juan. That's gold medal waters. It's a hot spot around here for catching some pretty good fish. Um, but those rainbows up there, there's some big ones in there. It looks like because I mean they gotta compete against your lake trout and all sorts of stuff in that river, right? So I mean they got to get up there in size.
Yeah, yeah, and it's all about the food source for the rainbows up here. I mean, we have such a huge sockeye population, huge salmon runs that come in every summer, and that's what makes these rainbows so big. Is they're feeding on the eggs when the sockeye are spawning, and then all winter long they're eating the fry that are in the lakes, and that's what really, if it wasn't for the sockeye, these giant rainbows we have, they wouldn't be here. It's just all based around the sockeye, the bears. I mean, all the other fish that you just mentioned, the char, the dollies, even whitefish. I mean, everything
Wow.
in the river depends on the sockeye, and that's all the Bristol Bay sockeye that you hear about and you get in the down there. It's that's what you're getting.
So we kind of jumped a little bit ahead, getting right into the fishing gig, but I just thought it was pretty cool that your girlfriend's that she jumped in and she's giving it hell. I think that's great. But let's rewind just a little bit. Now you're a young man. I mean, you're 23.
Yep, yep.
Okay, that was just a good guess because you graduated in 2012, and you were living in Oregon, right?
Yep.
And in a little town, big town. Where in Oregon were you?
I grew up in a small town, Yamhill, Oregon. It's about 30 southwest of Portland, not Portland.
So if you're from Oregon, that's important. I'd imagine that you're not actually in Portland.
Yes, well, everybody, oh, you're from Oregon, you're from Portland or Eugene, right? No, there's lots of room in between, and so.
Now, from some of your pictures I've seen on Instagram, is that kind of the deserty part of Oregon or something?
No,
Where are you running this Baja Mustang of yours at?
no, all those pictures were taken over in kind of southern Oregon, southeastern Oregon. Where I'm at, it's pretty much the Willamette Valley, backed up right to the Coast Range, and mainly is just pretty much rainforest. I mean, we get tons of rain, and we'd always run over the mountains to get away from the rain. So that's what all those desert pictures were.
Gotcha. So growing up in that region, you grew up hunting and fishing there, I would only assume.
Yep. Lots of hunting, fishing. My dad was a huge fisherman. He would drag us out every weekend, rain, shine, didn't matter. So we were fishing every weekend.
Well, it's good to have a dad that way, that's for sure. So do you think that your father was probably the biggest influence on kind of where you're at in your life right now and where you are in your wilderness attitude up there in Anchorage?
Yeah, he's definitely, I'd say there's two. One's him and one's my grandfather on my mom's side. He's a big time hunter, big time fisherman. He lives down in Bandon, Oregon, so a little further south on the coast. But yeah, it was to the point with my dad that as soon as I could drive and kind of do my own thing, I would get to the point where I wouldn't want to go fishing. So that was the last thing I wanted to do because he would drag us out every weekend in the freezing cold for winter steelhead on the coast. But yeah, I got back into it, obviously.
Obviously. What's your most memorable experience growing up in Oregon hunting or fishing? What do you recall being something that may have made a lasting impression on you?
Well, I mean, I can't narrow it down to one, but I'd have to say the ones that are talked about most are the ones that turned out the worst. Here's one that I can just pull from the top of my head. I wasn't actually there for it, so it's kind of a second hand through talk, but we used to always go up elk hunting, and we go up around Diamond Lake. I don't know if you know where that is. It's kind of
I have no idea.
it's it's kind of eastern Oregon, but in the middle, so southeastern Oregon. But we would always go up and we'd go elk hunting, and it was always a strong chance that towards the end of the season there'd be a lot of snow. And anyway, it was usually we always made it out and we could watch the weather and get out. But this last year before, my dad, he continued going after I moved up here, and I wasn't hunting with them anymore. But they went in, and it was getting towards the end of the season, and it's like, oh, it's gonna snow, and time to get out of here. And his buddies, oh, one more day. And well, my dad left, and my dad's friend stayed, and well, it snowed a lot. And ended up, he had his camper in there, and it was so bad that they wanted to leave his camper in there over the winter. It was just so much snow, and they ended up in the end getting wreckers in there and towing the camper and the truck out, and finally got them all out. But that's just one story that, gosh, I wish I could think of one. You just kind of I can't think.
It's all good
now, but that's the first one. Those kinds of stories that just bad things but turn out kind of thing.
Well, at any point in time you remember one, you just jump in and tell it to me. It'll be just fine. So what do you think about, well, growing up there, what sparked this idea when you graduated high school to motor for Alaska?
Growing up, it was always the joke, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I'd always say, oh, I want to be a professional fisherman. And that was kind of the joke growing up. And it just kind of, everyone laughed at it, haha, funny. And, I got closer and closer to graduating, and I was all set up to go to college just like everyone else, and enrolled, ready to go. And last minute, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going. I'm going to Alaska. So I started just going around everywhere I could think, sportsman shows, calling people, Craigslist ads, whatever, and just came up, and I got lucky with the gig I got with Royal Wolf and Chris Brown, and just stepping in where I did.
That's pretty cool. So, I mean, you researched Craigslist and you did all this stuff to try to find some opportunity there, and the Royal Wolf Lodge just kind of landed in your lap.
Yeah, of all places.
Of all places, it seems like a pretty good place to land to me. I mean, anywhere where you get to fly, where you can only fly in and fly out, sounds like a good time.
Oh gosh, it was absolutely crazy. I mean, going from never ever being around small airplanes to coming up here, and the very first, my introduction to Alaska was, all right, we're going to drop you off here, and started off in a small twin engine airplane and dropped me off in some native village, and some guy picked me up in a 150 and brought me out to the lodge and dropped me off on the ice. It was just like, I'd never even seen an airplane that small up close. It was just, what the?
That's pretty cool. So, I mean, right out of the gate, you get into Alaska and it's already giving you a rush. It's already feeding your young soul at this point. I mean, how old were you at that point? 19?
I think I was 18 still.
18 still?
Yeah, because, yeah, no, and it was something that was like, wow, this is awesome. I need to do this. And I'd already gone up there with the mindset I was going to do anything I could to get into the fishing side of things. So, because I started off at Royal Wolf as just a maintenance, do whatever kind of camp hand, and then my way up, and eventually they needed another guide, and I was there and ready. So.
And you knew the area well enough, and you were probably spending enough time in your spare time doing casting and doing some stuff, right? And kind of learning some of the water and some of the area. And so it probably turned out to be a good fit.
Yeah, yeah. It was a little brutal that first year. I mean, it's in the summer, spring and summer, it stays light almost all night. So you get done with work and you're like, well, I'm going fishing. And I mean, coming from Oregon, you quit when it gets dark. And no, it didn't really get dark. So I was lack for sleep for a while.
Had to learn to manage yourself a little differently, huh?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, were you scared when you left Oregon to go up there? I mean, were you nervous? Were you scared? I mean, did you know what to expect?
Um, well, I was very excited. Obviously, somewhat nervous, but no, very excited, and I had no idea what I was walking into. I mean, it was how I actually heard of Royal Wolf was through high school. I was working at a winery, and I started telling people I was heading to Alaska, and everybody was, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And finally, it was coming down to the wire. It's like, well, I don't have a job. I got my plane ticket bought already. I'm going up. Like, my boss at the winery, he's like, you're serious about this? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I might know a guy. And called Chris and looked him up online, and had no idea. Fly fishing lodge, where is it? Oh God, that's way down there out in Alaska, and there's no roads. What the hell? Okay, like whatever, let's try it. So
You kind of threw it to the wind, and it worked out.
yeah,
That's pretty
yeah.
cool, man. That's pretty cool. What different direction do you think your life might have gone had your father and grandfather not took you in the outdoors and forced you into freezing your ass off, you know, fishing and doing all this stuff? Do you have any ideas where you might be now?
Oh gosh, I mean, it's the only other thing I could think of is just doing what kind of all my other buddies are doing. They're sticking around. They're, small town, and stick around a small town and find work there and do whatever you end up doing, kind of thing. So
So do you think that out of your class you might have the most adventure under your belt at this point?
I wouldn't say that. I have no idea, but you know, I set out with the goal of it's just I'm gonna go for it, and wherever that takes me, that's I want
Right.
adventure, and I want to see some cool stuff and explore. So
So it sounds to me, landing at Royal Wolf Lodge, that has happened for you because, you know, you went up there to be a maintenance guy, and by the end of your first year, you're a fly fishing guide, right? And you had no prior experience in that, but obviously you made a good impression. Your value to work and be a good hand and do things and pay attention and whatnot. Obviously, must be a part of your work ethic, and and then before you know it, just last year you went into full time guiding, right?
you're
And
that's yeah.
yeah, the last was it beginning of last year that you did?
I think it was year before
Year
that.
before that?
I don't know,
And so
but
I mean, you landed there, you're doing this stuff, and you're working your way up, and then from what I understand, you were helping do brown bear hunts, right, on the coast.
hmm
So I mean, okay, that's a whole level of adventure. That's kind of up here a little bit, right?
uh-huh.
So,
Yeah,
what did
no.
you think about getting involved with that? I mean, you know, when they said to you, "We'd like for you to go be an assistant guide. We want you to go hunt brown bears." It's okay. You won't get hurt, right? I mean, did you think like, "Are you crazy?"
No, I mean, that was another thing that coming up here, everyone I applied to a bunch of different jobs, and it was either hunting or fishing. And there's a few in between, but those were kind of hard to come by or hard for me to find, however that worked. But no, this one I came up and he's like, all right, well, start you doing this. And I heard him talking about it one day. He's like, yeah, we also do bear hunts over on the coast. I was like, ooh, how do I do that? I want to do that. Like, where do I sign up? I want to go.
Okay, so you got to sign up, and tell us about the coolest brown bear hunt that you ever helped with. You know?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I started off packing because in Alaska you have to pack for 3 years before you can apply for assistant guide's license. So I did the 3 years packing, and I mean, in those 3 years, I got to see quite a few different hunts and be involved with a few. And I mean, one of the most crazy ones that just blew me away and gave me the utmost respect for these bears that we're hunting is we're out hunting, and with bears, brown bears, it's all what we're doing is all spot and stock, and we're on the coast, so there's a big inlet that we're hunting pretty much, and it's spring or fall hunts, and they're usually about 12 days, and we were out, and I think it was towards the middle of the hunt, and we spot a big bear way across the estuary, and like, okay, that's a big bear, no doubt. We're going after that one, and we got lucky with the tide because we're on one side of the estuary, bears on the other, and we worked our way around and across and got into place, and the bear's gone, of course, by the time we get there. So we're sitting there and we're waiting and looking and waiting and looking, and finally all of a sudden, oop, there it is. This bear pops up, and he had been sitting in this, it was almost like a hot tub. It was springtime, and it was a really warm spring, and this bear was sitting in this little pothole in the tundra, and he was laying in there wallowing around keeping cool, and we'd probably sat there and waited for him for a couple of hours, and pops up, and that's our bear. Instantly, we're about 150 yards away from this thing, and we had two hunters. It was a father and a son, and bear pops up, and they had agreed that they were going to shoot the bear together, kind of thing, but the son shoots first. So
this is a rifle hunt.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
This was a rifle, and I think the son was shooting a 300 Weatherby mag, or 300 Weatherby, yeah, and the father was shooting a 375, something like that. Both big guns, and these guys, they were on it. They had their guns dialed. They've been training for this, shooting, getting ready for it for a long time, and they were freaking on it. They shoot this bear, both of them, boom, boom, and the bear takes off running. And of course, that was my first, like, what the heck? Like, this was when I just started, and this was, I think, close to the bear I'd seen actually get shot, and takes off running and starts going up the hill. And of course, they're shooting as it's going up the hill and shooting, and the bear makes it all the way up the hill, and we're ranging it as it's going up the hill. And it's like, okay, I think the last shot was at 400 yards, and they hit this bear, and at this point they're just trying to stop it, whatever they can do. And one of them hits this bear right in the cheek, and it just kind of glances off its cheek, and he gets pissed, and he's spinning around and grabs an alder that's probably about 5 inches around, just rips it right out of the ground and throws it over his shoulder. And the last thing we see is his butt going right over the hill and disappears. And I'm watching this. I'm the packer. I'm sitting behind them, and I was holding the rangefinder, helping them range and calling it out and throwing bullets at them and stuff. And they're like, oh, crap. What the heck? We know we hit it good. There's like no doubt in their mind. And we'd seen it get hit several times going up the hill, and we're like, what the heck? And, well, let's go after it. And at this point, you talked about being a little hesitant about brown bear hunting. It was like it was a steep ass hill, side of a mountain. There are like alders everywhere. There's no good way up it. And luckily we were with a old experienced guide, and he really knew his stuff. He was like, well, we're going to go around here and we're going to come down on top of him, and we're all going to pan out. We're going to come down the mountain and we'll find him. Like, okay. So fast forward to the part where we all fan out. I'm standing there alone with, I think it was a hand-me-down 338 that my boss handed me, I think right about the time I was getting off the airplane. And
Right.
they're like, all right, yell if you see something. And I'm like, oh, God. So we all start going down the hill. And I
mean, were you shitting your pants, dude?
I was shaking a little bit at this point. Adrenaline was pumping. And I was the first one to see it. And it's just that adrenaline rush when you see a brown piece of fur through the alders. It's about 10 yards away. So I yell out, and luckily he'd passed by the time we got there, but it turned out to be a 9-foot brown bear. And those first two shots were about that far away, 2 inches apart, right in the boiler room, just perfect shot. And he had been hit all over the place. I mean, it was just, at that point, I realized how tough these bears are, and it just blew me away.
No doubt, man. That's crazy. I mean, even tracking a black bear here is a little bit unnerving. And it's not even the same caliber. It's not even remotely close, right? And so I think some of you guys are nuts, but one of these days, if I could ever afford to do a brown bear or grizzly bear hunt, I'm gonna do it, and so maybe someday I'll be able to afford it, and I'll be walking through the alders looking for a bear that I shot with my bow, because I'm surely not gonna shoot a rifle at one. I can't hit the broadside of a barn with a rifle. I'm better off shooting a bow. So I mean, you have found some adventure. There's no doubt about it. I mean, because it doesn't even stop there. I mean, at 23 years old, you're doing that. You're doing some guiding, and then the next thing you know, you get a wild hair to get your pilot's license, your private pilot's license, right? That's awesome. I mean, I think about it. I'm just like, there's not many kids your age that are going full steam ahead like you, and going for it, and I just think it's extremely impressive. And so, how long have you been a private pilot at this point?
I got my pilot's license, I think, beginning of April last year, last spring. So not quite a year yet. Actually, I haven't even, since I did my check ride, I haven't flown since, because as soon as I was done with my check ride, I think 4 or 5 days later, I was out at the lodge and we were getting stuff ready, getting it all ramped up for another year. Got done with this last summer and then did a fall bear hunt, and then got home, and then I've been working on airplanes, relaxed for a week, and then jumped right into working on airplanes, and haven't even got to hop in an airplane by myself since I got the private.
Oh, not yet, huh? So are you itching? Are you itching to go?
Oh, yeah. I just called the instructor yesterday, and I set some dates with her. I was like, well, I need to get back in the saddle and get going, because this winter I'm going to try to get my instrument rating. So
there you go.
We'll see how that.
Nice. Well, and I think that, I mean, you're building a ton of experience wrenching on these things too, right? I mean, knowing how something really works and understanding what it's meant to do, how it does it efficiently, what it means to other pieces of the plane and stuff. It seems to me like learning that kind of stuff makes you a better pilot.
Definitely. Yeah. Now, if one thing isn't quite right, you can kind of go through all the mechanisms that make that thing work and maybe diagnose something a little quicker than someone that has no idea why that flap out there goes up and why it goes down. Like,
why that flap goes up and down. I sure as hell hope that anybody that flies a plane understands why that goes up and down.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are some.
Oh, you never know.
I think that's awesome, and and that's a huge accomplishment for your life. I hope you understand that, and continue to stay after it and continue to push yourself through that, and keep going for your rate. All of the, like Ben, I don't know how many ratings he's got. He's got, it's just unbelievable what you can do. It just almost like it never ends.
Right. And he's going for his helicopter rating now, or getting whatever that is, to fly helicopters.
Dude, that'd
Crazy.
be cool. Right? That'd be cool. Well, and so now, to boil it kind of down, you're working there at the lodge, and you're guiding now on your own, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fishing. Are you guiding on your own for hunts as well?
Yep. Well, yeah. So this last year was my first solo guiding.
Gotcha. What was your first solo hunt that you guided on? And tell me about your client. Tell me the whole experience there, how that went down.
Well, my first guided hunt was actually with the guy that I had met the year before, and I was packing for him and another guide, and he didn't end up taking a bear that he wanted, so my boss gave him another hunt. They worked a deal, and he agreed to be my first client. So he was well aware that this was my first year guiding solo for brown bear, and he was confident enough in me to come hunt brown bear on the coast. So we went out to our camp out in Ursa's Cove out on the coast, and it's just pretty much bare minimum. It's nothing fancy, just a wall tent and a little cook stove in there and some cots, and 12 days there we were. And
Nice.
I think there was another guide there, and he had a guy with him, and they were going out, we were going out, and they got their bear, I think, on the 4th day, and we ended up getting our bear on the 6th day. But our bear was really cool how it all kind of happened. It was getting right to the middle of the hunt where you start to kind of see the discouragement and getting frustrated, and your legs are tired, you're walking every day kind of thing. And it was getting really close. This is springtime, so it was getting close to getting dark, actually. The sun was starting to set, and of course we're sitting there, and we've been sitting out in the middle, kind of in this tidal flat up on the dry grass, and leaned up against a big rock. We'd been watching 3 smaller bears play all day long about 100 yards away from us, and
Cool.
We'd been watching them and glassing, and it was just, when you're sitting on your butt for that many hours in a day, it's awesome to have that kind of entertainment right there. So it was nice to have the bears there, and we were just getting ready to head out, actually, and it's like, well, today's not the day, and we're getting packed up, getting our packs put on, and one last look way up the estuary, and there's a big ass bear, and we're like, oh, okay. And
Nice.
Those bears are all about the wind. If you don't have the right wind, you don't even think about putting a stalk on one. Those bears are so sensitive to smell. They will smell you miles away before you even see them. They'll be gone. So it was kind of tricky with the wind. It was blowing kind of towards the bear, but not really. It was really soft, and we're like, you know what? We're going to try it. So we start working our way up, and we're out in the middle of this huge tidal flat, and it's kind of mud, sand, but all there is to hide behind is a few scattered boulders, just huge boulders as big as cars out there. And this
Right.
bear down the valley towards us, and just right on the edge. And there's a big mountain on the right side, and he's walking right along the bottom, kind of in the rocks, kind of out in the tidal flat. And we start moving towards him, and he's coming towards us, and we're kind of using these rocks to line up the bear behind the rocks so he doesn't see us coming. So it's like walk 100 yards, hit a rock, wait till he's not really paying attention, find another rock, line up behind that rock, and keep going. Finally, we get to a point, I'm like, okay, this is a spot set up. He's going to come right over that mound, range it, 100 yards, boom, done. Okay, we're waiting. Just be patient. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what the heck? Look, and there's another bear right behind him, just as big as that bear. And this is springtime, so you figure, well, they're mating in the spring, so it might be a bigger boar that's dogging us out. But my first impression of the bear we saw is he's a good bear, like really nice bear. And then there's another bear behind him chasing him. I'm like, what the heck? That can't be a sow that big. Well, it could be a sow, and we're talking, we're trying to figure this out, and the bear is probably about 500 yards away, and he just makes a 90-degree turn and walks just out across the open estuary. I'm like, crap, what do you do? Did he smell us? What happened? And this other bear is just following right behind him. And finally,
step for step on his tail.
Yeah, and he gets to the other side, makes another left turn, walks directly towards us. And what the heck is going on? I figured something wasn't right with him, the wind did us, whatever. But just line drive right to us. So we like scoot around the rock a little bit, get lined up. And when we let that bear come in, he got about 50 yards. And I start kind of tapping my client, Jeff, on the shoulder. I'm like, come on, Jeff, shoot.
It's time. It's time.
And he's waiting. And I'm like, God dang it. Okay. I'm like, I was just going to see how close he wanted to let him get. And I think it was 39 yards. And he shoots this bear. And great shot on it. The bear drops right there. And that other bear that was following right behind him, I have never seen a bear run so fast. He did a out of there.
God, huh?
Yeah, no, it was crazy. So that was my first brown bear ever as solo guiding.
Solo. That sounds awesome and successful, and like that was a cool story, a cool adventure. So I look at a bunch of pictures up there from the Royal Wolf Lodge and some of the stuff that you sent us, and the you see you guys out there fly fishing, and there's bears right behind you. I mean, there's brown bears all around you guys all the time. I mean, do you kind of learn who some of the bears are? Like, do you see a lot of the same ones from time to time? Like, oh, that's so and so, or that's Yogi, or that's stuff like that.
We do actually see the same bears year after year, and the one that stands out in my mind is there was this one bear, I think a couple of years ago, that one of its rear legs had been broken, so it was walking just on one foot in the rear and kind of hobbling around. I'm like, oh God, that one, better watch that one, because when a bear's hurt like that, they start to get a little more desperate depending on how much salmon are around or how the other bears are being around them. So that was something to look out for when you're walking through the brush. If you know there's a hurt bear in there, you got to be a little more careful. So there was that bear, and it's not going to last the winter. And you know what? It keeps coming back year after year. We've seen him for 2 years since that. And that same bear, he's never been a problem, really. Sometimes he's skinnier than the other bears, but he's making it.
So when you guys catch a lot of fish, what do you do with them so that the bears don't come take your fish? Or have you ever had to give up some offerings to bears so they don't come and get you?
another thing about working for Royal Wolf Lodge, I'm very fortunate. We're all
Oh,
catch and
okay.
release as far as so we don't ever have to worry about dealing with fish too much. We do every once in a while. We'll go down salmon fishing. We'll keep some nice bright salmon, but no, I haven't had the experience where the bear really wanted my fish. I've had them try to catch them when they're on the
Oh
line,
yeah.
and that yeah. So you'll be fighting a fish, and bear sees a fish that's flopping around and doesn't look like it's swimming right. So I'm gonna go catch that fish. He looks like he'd be easy to catch, and so what you do in that situation, you drop the rod tip and let the fish have all the line it needs, and sometimes they'll calm down. But if they don't, you got to break the line because you can't let a bear get the fish at all costs because then they associate you as a fisherman with food. So every time you come around, they'll be coming to you going, "Oh, what do you got for me?"
I didn't think of that, but I could see how they'd learn that real fast. Huh. That's crazy.
Mhm.
So, what do you think where do you see yourself? I mean, did you go to Alaska to be there for 5 years, 10 years, or you think you're kind of turned into a lifer?
I fell in love with it instantly. I mean, it was the first time I came up, it was like, okay, how can I and when can I move up here? And I think I'll be here this will be obviously my residency, but it would be nice to find a nice warm place to go in the wintertime.
Well, then you can't be a true Alaskan. See,
Uh, no, I'm sticking it out, and I know too. I was riding snow machines and playing in the snow and anyway. So another cool thing about the flying is flying on skis. That's a whole new adventure that I need to go check out. So
heck
another good
yes.
reason. Cold up here.
So, are you still working at the lodge right now? And does that carry on in the winter, or is it totally seasonal?
No, just seasonal. It's for me. It works out to be about 6 months of work, give or take. I go start up early, go help them get it all ready, and then I help them break it down. But no, this last winter I worked with Ben at Sportsman's, helping them do annuals on their beavers and their cubs, and but yeah, doing that same thing this year and hoping to find a job doing a little bit more mechanicking. I got a buddy that I might go work for here sometime in December or maybe January. I actually get to go home for Christmas this year, so
That's cool. Right
yeah.
on. That's very cool. So, what's your what's your next big goal that you got going on in your career? And then also, what other goals do you have as far as guiding, as part of your career? And then, you know, anything off the wall, something else you're going to do up there in Alaska?
Well, as far as career, I'm kind of is the financial part is working towards becoming a pilot and doing a lot more of the flying stuff. Um, Trying to get my instrument rating and then doing my commercial here. And all that is I need to go flying, and flying costs money. So that takes
Right.
a little more time for a seasonal fishing guide than it would maybe someone else. But
Right.
no. And then as far as the guiding side of things, I want to keep fishing, but the problem with that is all the other hunting is right when the fishing is best for rainbows. So sheep hunting, moose hunting, that's all in September, August. I mean, that's prime time for fishing.
Right.
And I need to find a balance between those two things. It's really
Yeah,
hard to.
that seems like it would be, you know, I don't know, man. I'm way more of a hunter than I am a fisherman. So it wouldn't be a hard choice for me. But,
No, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
right.
Simpler if it was just one.
I was going to also ask you, I saw a video that you sent to us about the salmon running. And you guys were in this boat and you're cruising along in this boat. And it's like all around you for 30 yards is just mayhem of salmon going crazy. That that's got to be super cool and something that you have to take in person.
Oh gosh, that was a special thing. It's when the sockeye are all staging up at the bottom of the rivers, they're waiting for their bodies to acclimate in the water to get the right temperature, whatever they wait for to go up and begin spawning. And they're all stacked up, and we'd been going up this small creek to go fishing, and you just drive through them as slow as you can because you don't want to stir them all up. But it's like one sockeye spooks, and then they just blow up. I've seen to the point where they make their own wake that washes up on shore like a 3-foot wave. It's just insane.
That was the coolest thing, but I mean, the video gives you a little bit of a teaser, but it does no justice to what it's got to even look like and sound like, and I mean, it's got to be amazing, just amazing. And
Yeah.
I'd love to see them actually make it upriver too. I mean, I've never seen it in person. Where they jump out of the water and they, and they're, to try to make it up the rapid and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what a dedication to bearing children, right? I mean, it's just insane.
Sacrifice it all. I wonder if they know it's all going to end after they're done. Like,
Yeah, if that's going through their head, like, I'm going to die when I get there. It's my honor.
yeah, no, it's crazy what they'll swim through. It's those sockeye, they'll go through, I mean, where they're almost high and dry and just kind of snake through the rocks. It's just, they're incredible fish.
Right. Now, I mean, you guys, so you said you do mostly catch and release stuff, but I mean, where does the lodge get their fish that they cook? Because the food accommodations at Royal Wolf Lodge looks amazing.
Yeah, no, that's one of the big things that we focus on is the lodging and I mean just the comfort and the food obviously. And no, sometimes it's hard to have them eat salmon. When you go out every day and you're slipping around on dead sockeye that have been half eaten by the bears and they have maggots all over them and it stinks. And then you go home and they come out with this beautiful fillet on a plate that's just presented beautifully. And they just look down at that and think, wow, I stepped on about 1,000 of those today. And one of them sprayed eggs all over the place. It was just, we have a lot of guys that request no salmon.
Really? Really?
Yeah, return guys. It's funny.
So do they on the menus, do they do a lot of wild game? Do they do caribou and bear and,
Not really. I mean, legally, I don't think we can. I don't know how that works. I think you can get reindeer if it's actually raised, but I don't think you can actually go out and shoot a moose and serve it to the clients. It would be really nice if you could, but I think
Right.
something there where we can't do that. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm
no,
sure it has something to do with public health department. You can't.
yeah, there's a weird deal there. But yeah, no, I mean, we get. It would be really nice if we could do that because then we wouldn't have to fly so much out because everything we get, it's all fly out. So
Right. So, I mean, you guys, the Royal Wolf Lodge is a 5-star experience. I mean, it is top notch. What's kind of do you know any, like, what's the average price to go to the Royal Wolf Lodge for 5 days and fly fish? Do you have any idea, like a ballpark figure?
I think we're right around 95 for full 6 days for a full week. I think every once in a while we'll do special deals, but generally we're trying to sell a full week. And that's just logistics, getting people in, getting people out, that kind of thing.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. So $9,500 for a week.
Yeah, I think that's somewhere right in there. I don't think we're
Wow, that's
mark.
That's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet. I don't know. I'm a little ways away from affording to be able to go fishing for 10 grand, but at the same time, though, it looks like an experience to. It looks like an amazing experience. That where that's located is beautiful, and the lodge is gorgeous, and obviously they hire good help, and you guys do a great job because your return customer list is pretty big. It seems like.
Yeah, yeah, we have a lot.
What's the coolest guest that you've ever had come there?
um, I haven't got to guide a lot of celebrity anybody yet, really. But
Right.
I mean, we've just had most all the guys that we get there, most of them are return guys, and they're really good about keeping the good guys there. So, I mean, all of our guests are awesome to go fishing with. It's like going fishing with your buddies every day, almost. It's ridiculous. They're like, "Oh, you got the beer? All right, let's go." Jump in the airplane and you go have a blast all day. It's incredible, and we have really good people come out there.
Sounds super fun. What do you think is the number one thing you've taken away from the last 5 years in the experience and the adventure that you decided to seek out, leaving home and going there? What do you think that would be?
That's tough. Again, you're good at these tough questions. But no, I mean, I would have to say number one thing I've learned is that it's not so much what you know, it's who you know. And having friends is a big deal. So just being nice to people. You never know what they might offer you or what you can offer them, kind of thing. So just be as nice as you can to everybody you meet, and you never know where you may end up, maybe on a cool adventure or maybe helping someone out, kind of thing. So
Right. So just being a good, genuine person and being a good guy and working
yeah,
hard sounds like it's done you really well.
what goes around comes around.
Amen to that, right? That's awesome. So with the future in front of you, young man, and all the things you have going on there, kudos to you for pushing through and getting after it and making a go of it. Youth these days, they're not. It's just not the same, and you're an exception to some of what I see. And I just think that for the young people listening, or even some of the older people that listen, I mean, you give hope and to our listeners that there's young people that are still striving to go make something for themselves, and that's good for us to hear. So to our younger listeners, what would you say to them as far as if they're on the fence about pursuing a dream and going to Alaska? What would you tell them?
You know, I mean, the one thing that I still struggle with is just going for it. The first step's the hardest one. So after you get rolling, it'll all fall together. I mean, sometimes it doesn't work out, or you step into something, you're like, God, I never want to do that again, but at least then you know. So it's just, if you're thinking about doing it, make yourself go do it, and you'll be wiser from it one way or another.
Yep, right. Whether you succeed or fail. I mean, but I think anybody that goes for it and their passion's there and they push and they got the right attitude, then they'll be successful.
Yep. If you want it bad enough.
That's right. So, a quick question before we're almost done. So, I always like to ask people, where's your favorite place in the wilderness? If there's one place where that just pops in your head right away, where's your favorite place?
The top of the mountain.
Any mountain, just at the top.
where you worked for it, and you get to turn around and just look out, usually right around sunset. And hopefully you don't have to walk back down in the dark, but usually that's the case. But no, the top of the mountain, when you're looking out at the view and just quiet, peaceful, that's my favorite place.
Yeah. What do you think the wilderness has done for your attitude in your life as a person?
Hopefully make it better, make me better. I don't know really any other way. It's just outdoors is my life. There's no other option really. Everything I do, it has to do with being outside. So
Right. Well, your passion rings true. You were raised right, and you were given the opportunity to experience the outdoors, even though you had to turn your back on it. You know, I know how that is. I did the same thing. I got a car and rock and roll and girls, and off I went, man. I turned my back on the wilderness for a long time, and I'm really glad I got back to it. But do you think that are you living what you like to do even in your off time? I mean, seems to me like you got a killer job, man. You got a killer gig going on here.
yeah, no, I'm very, very lucky. I mean, every time I'm not working, I'm trying to figure out how to get out and do what I was doing when I was working. So it's kind of a strange.
So you don't have any other hobbies that aren't the same as what you do for work?
Well, I mean, obviously hunting, fishing, I ride snow machines, snowboard. I mean, anything. I mean, outside is like, all right, let's try it. I mean, go ride a bike around in the cold and the snow. Like, I don't know.
Just as long as you're outside, huh? You're a happy man.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you what. It's really been great getting to know you. You're a cool dude, man. And I really have enjoyed the time that you've taken to spend with us. I'm sure our listeners will really enjoy it as well, and I hope that your first podcast wasn't too crazy for you.
Not at all. Thanks for having me.
Well, Jesse, I look forward to meeting you here soon. We'll be up in your neck of the woods here shortly, and I'll get to shake your hand and drink a beer with you, and we'll cuss and discuss some more.
Awesome.
Excellent, Jesse. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being on Wilderness Attitude. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed Jesse. He's a cool young man for his age, kicking ass and taking the world by storm, I'd say. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to wildernessattitude.com, throw us an email, or better yet, go to iTunes or wherever you're picking us up here and give us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Good, bad, ugly, I don't care. If you like what we're doing, hit 5 stars. And even if you just throw some stars, we'd appreciate it. But if you got some comment, put it on there. And then if you think I suck, hit 1 star and tell me why I suck. Because we surely want to do what we can to make this an enjoyable experience for you. So until next time, carry your wilderness attitude, carry it right. Get out in the woods, get out in the wilderness, get outdoors. Go find yourself. It's out there somewhere. Thanks for tuning in.